with us recording the video. Thank you. We have translation into French, Spanish, and I believe Portuguese. So please select the language that you'd like to use on your Zoom button. And we are opening the Q&A chat function so that as we progress, if you want to ask question, you can actually enter it in the Q&A chat section, but we will do the Q&A session at the end. I'll just give you an overview of the agenda and welcoming you all to this new RBM partnership to end malaria. And I'd like this opportunity to share with you my excitement for, walking this new part of the journey with you. And this new phase of our leadership. And we have been working on this collectively as partners, over the past year. And a lot of you have played a critical role in this. So in this meeting, we will be able to introduce to you the incoming CEO of the board, CEO of the partnership, and the new board members, the new board. At the same time, really giving a wonderful and heartfelt thank you to the interim CEO who is leaving us this month, and the old board, some of whom have already left us. We want to be able to recap the governance transition process that culminated in May and detailed the circumstances that led to the shift. And my very, very wonderful deputy chair, that is Marik, will take us through that. We will also, of course, introduce the new members, even as we are honoring the outgoing ones. And then look ahead a little bit and share with you some of the parts of the new vision that came out during the last board meeting. And then, of course, we'll have the Q&A. So that is our agenda for today. Now, together, I believe as a partnership, we have helped save over 11 million lives and prevented 2 billion cases of malaria over the years since the partnership was established. And we have continuously done this by continuously adapting over the past 20 years to bring us closer and closer to ending malaria, but also to accept that we are dealing with a changing environment. So even as we celebrate the past accomplishments today, it is time that we do recognize that there are new challenges that we need to adapt to. The health landscape has changed, and you as partners have called for a reform of both the way in which we engage and the structure of the partnership. Now, the global circumstances we are all familiar with. It is not just COVID-19, but there's the climate change and the impact it is having on us having to adapt in order to deal with the impact of climate change, but also having a responsibility to contribute to mitigation as citizens of this planet. And we have seen the development of resistance, whether it is to the insecticides that we use or even to the combination therapy, that insulin-based combination therapy that we are using. And globalization, of course, is bringing its own complications into the picture, including the challenges with supply chain and the need for manufacturing capacity and development in the South. And of course, there are the humanitarian crises that are continuing to compound our ability to engage and imply, therefore, a more enhanced engagement. So we have listened to the partners, and this new partnership has really been structured in order to adapt to this changing landscape and to address the complex financial challenges and leadership changes globally, and also, of course, adapt to the needs of the communities that we are seeking to serve. So this new leadership we feel is well positioned to address all these challenges and to embrace these challenges together with you. And we really would like to congratulate you all for continuing to play such a critical role. We have with us today some of our new members. We have, apart from the CEO that I'll introduce in a second, we do have, I introduced the deputy chair already, that is Marika. We have Sherwin Charles, who is the chair of our finance committee, and we have David Walton, who is a founder and board member representing PMI. We have Avery, who is his alternate. We have Ayo, who is the alternate for Lola Dare, and with Isabel, who is representing Science and Innovation, and Yassine, who is an unaffiliated member. Now, gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our new CEO, Dr. Michael Adekunle Charles, who comes to this role as an experienced diplomat, medical doctor, public health expert, currently serving as the head of delegation for Southern Africa at the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Society. Dr. Charles has many years of experience leading the organization's malaria coordination in Africa and providing technical, managerial, and operational support. So over to you, Dr. Charles, to introduce yourself.
Great, thank you so much, Joy, and it gives me great pleasure and excitement to be with you today and to be part of the malaria community. Obviously, I'm very energized and look forward to leading the partnership as the CEO. As Joy said, I have many years of experience working at the community level. You know, as we all know, malaria starts and ends in the communities. And I think we need to recognize that and continue to work in terms of strengthening our communities, but also looking into the aspects around localization. However, we know ending malaria will not just be, focused on communities. We need to ensure that we really get the policies right. We need to really get, malaria high on the agenda, and we work with the political colleagues to ensure that, enough attention is given to malaria. I have been working, as I said, on malaria for a long time. Started as a clinician in Nigeria, in Lagos, really treating, many malaria cases. But I'm really coming to this role starting on the 1st of July. And I really want to lead a secretariat that is committed, a secretariat that is motivated, a secretariat that is fit for purpose, and a secretariat that will work with every single one of you, including the board, in ensuring that there is adequate coordination, that we're able to convene as partners, that we're able to communicate, but more importantly, we're able to ensure complementarity. I really believe that to end malaria, we need to be malaria smart, meaning we need to support each other, we need to work in the same direction, and we need to make sure that we're working all together. There's a saying that says, the whole is greater than the sum of all its parts, meaning that together we'll be able to achieve greatness. Together we'll be able to end malaria. Zero malaria starts with me, it starts with you, it starts with every single one of us. So I'm really looking forward to working with you, to listening to you, to seeing how we can really make sure that malaria remains high on the agenda and that we can fight and defeat malaria collectively. So thank you. I start on the 1st and looking forward to engaging with you more thereafter. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you so much. We look forward to walking this exciting path with you and ending malaria together. Marike, over to you about the transition process.
Thank you so much. And it's indeed, there's lots of transitions happening. And really delighted that we are at this stage with a new board, with a fantastic new board chair and a fantastic new incoming CEO. So I would like to briefly talk you through the governance changes that we have been implementing over the last year or so, and culminating in the first board meeting of the board in its new composition 3 weeks ago. And this whole process started a year ago in May of 2022 when we had a board retreat. And as a partnership board, we proactively initiated a governance review at that stage in response to feedback and input from partners that they felt that the partnership board should reflect the changing global health landscape, but also that especially the malaria endemic countries felt that their voice was not heard clear enough in the partnership board. And we took that really serious, and it really was a key driver to starting this governance reform process. From May onwards, with support from Bridges for Development, all over the summer of 2022, extensive consultations took place, and really listening to many stakeholders. There were surveys that people responded to, 40 interviews were held. They met with the partner committees and really tried to capture as many input as possible. And that resulted then in a decision at the board meeting in October on the structure of the new board, which combines a representational and a constituency-based seats with a limited number of unaffiliated board members. And we felt that this structure really illustrates the best part of the previous iteration of the board. It is expected to allow the board to leverage key perspectives from the entire malaria community, while also ensuring that at the board we do have access to the specific expertise and the independent voices that the board also needs. At the end of November, a Transition Oversight Committee was launched to facilitate the transition from the old board to the new board. And I was lucky enough to chair that board. And over then from November until May, we had a very intense process to discuss with constituencies on how they would select their board member. And that resulted, as I mentioned before, that we had the first board meeting on 16th of May of the new board in its new composition. And the day before, the 15th, we had a retreat with the outgoing board and the incoming board members as a handover, and really discussing the changes that had been made, gave an update of the current malaria situation, and then said farewell to the outgoing board. The transition committee, maybe just to flag, we tried to be a balance to have people in the committee that would be leaving the board, but also people that we expected would continue in the new board, so that we would have some continuity, but also the buy-in from new board members. If you go to the next slide. So this is what the current RBM Partnership Board looks like. We have 23 voting members and one non-voting ex officio board member, which is Andrew Kirkwood, a representative of our hosting organization, UNOPS. There's 2 members who are unaffiliated, so not part of one constituency or representing constituency. And the chair, we didn't sort of require that the board chair should be an unaffiliated board member, but we were lucky enough to find Joyce, who was nominated as the chair, and then each board member will have an alternate to ensure continuity. If we then look at the board seats, as you can see, there's 9 board seats for malaria-affected countries, and they have been organized by region. And the number of board seats were really scaled according to the relative burden of malaria and the variety of the unique local epidemiological settings in each region. So that means we had 6 seats for Africa, 2 for the Asia Pacific, and 1 for the Latin American Caribbean region. Then we have 2 civil society seats that really represent the communities that are affected by malaria, and at least one of those seats should be for a civil society representative from a malaria-affected countries. And as Joy will present later, we're lucky enough to have 2 who present the malaria-endemic countries. Then we have 5 representatives from funders in the fight against malaria. And these include regional global donors, philanthropies and foundations, and public sovereign donors. Currently, we have 4 of these seats occupied, and we would be delighted to welcome new funders on board who can occupy the 5th seat. So please spread the news. There's 2 private sector seats. There's many private stakeholders involved in the fight against malaria, and we would want to have those represented too. And those voices, they really can be from companies that have supply chain expertise to companies that have expertise in management, in local health clinics, in medicine. So there's really a variety of private sector voices. Then we have 1 science and innovation seat, which was newly created. And that is because he thought that the scientific expertise and specific knowledge of new technologies and innovation should be available to the board members. The host organization already mentioned UNOPS, Andrew Kirkwood, who is ex officio non-voting board member. We have a seat, of course, for the WHO Global Malaria Program, which is the key normative agency in malaria. And lastly, 3 unaffiliated board members, board seats that have been filled through a call for proposals at the RBM Partnership Board, and then a small selection committee that selected the unaffiliated board members. And with that, I think I'm handing back to you, Joy.
Thank you so much, Marike. This is a very good, hopefully good picture of our new board, a combination of the old and the new. Instead of going through reading all their names, I think I will read the names as we explain their constituencies so that we can understand where they're coming from. I think you can see Marie's pretty face and my Akiwan, the board chair and the vice chair. And then we have, of course, our handsome finance committee chair, Sherwin Charles. And then that is the incoming board leadership. So as you can see, it's a combination of people with experience on the board and me who has not been on the board. So we have representatives of the malaria affected countries in Africa, Asia, Pacific, and in the Americas. So in Africa, the representatives are from each of the economic blocks in the regional community economic blocks, which are representing the continent. And also we have a representative of the African Union, the director in the African Union. So we have Julio, who is the director of the Directorate of Health and Human Affairs from the African Union Commission. We have Irene Isaka, who is from the East African Community. And then we have Kapinga Yvette Ngandu, who is the Commissioner for Gender Promotion, Human and Social Development in ECAS. And then we have the Deputy Executive Secretary of SADC, that is Angel Magombo. And then we have the Director General of WAHO, who is His Excellency AC. And then we have the Western Pacific, Asia and the Western Pacific, represented by APROMA. So this is the CEO of APROMA, Satak Das. And then we have the Health Minister of the Solomon Islands, representing, the island nations. And then we have a representative of PAHO that is being appointed by the Pan-African Health Organization, that is the representing the Americas, that is Keith Carter. So these are representing the malaria affected countries. And then the next slide, we have, can we have the next slide, please? Okay, we have the representatives of civil society. Representatives of civil society, I think we have a bit of a problem moving to the next slide, is Lola Dare, who is the president of Chestrust Global, and Joseph Wato, executive director, Pentecostal Advocates for Socioeconomic Development. So those are the civil society representatives. And then the other incoming board members are representatives of key funders in the fight against malaria. We have Nasser Al Mubarak, who's from the UAE, Senior Director reaching the last mile. And we have Helen Jamat, Deputy Director of Vector Control, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And then we have Marik, whom you all know, who is the Head of Strategic Investment and Impact Division at the Global Fund. And then we have David Walton, who is the new head of the US President's Malaria Initiative. And sometimes he says not so new, because I think he's now 10 months in office. And then we have the private sector representatives. That is Sherwin Charles, the chair of the Finance Committee, and Caroline, I will not attempt her second name in case I massacre it, who is the Director of Sales for Public Health at Vestergaard. And then we have Science and Innovation representatives, Lynette Isabel, who is the Senior Scientist and Vice Chairperson of the Bioscience Department at the Wellcome, the Camry Wellcome Trust Research Program. And then, of course, we have the WHO representative, who is setting the global standards and regulation for malaria. That is Dr. Daniel Ngamije, who is the director of the Global Malaria Program in WHO. And then we also have the unaffiliated representatives. We have the Princess of Africa, Yvonne Shaka Shaka. For those of you who don't know her, she is our beautiful princess and one of the most gifted musicians on the continent. But most importantly, an artist who's been using her talent and her influence to effect change, particularly among heads of state. So she's very popular on the continent. And then we have Yassine, whom you all know. She's the founder and executive director of Speak Up Africa. And of course, we have Andrew, who is our host agency. So he is, I think, the final board member that we wanted to introduce to you today. So we also have board member alternates. Those who have their constituencies have got alternates. And there are some who have not yet shared their alternates, but we have the list of alternates here. We will share the slide with you so that I can give you more time to respond, so that we don't take up all the time. I just wanted to take this opportunity to recognize the accomplishments of the outgoing leadership that was led by Maha, and the secretariat, of course, that was led by interim secretariat led by the interim CEO Corinne, and our former head of the finance committee, that is that we see the head of MMV. So thank you so much to the outgoing board, and we look forward to continuing to engage with you, because we don't think this is the last we are seeing with you as a malaria community. And I would now like to hand over to Sherwin. I don't know if before we do this particular slide. If Sherwin is Sherwin there or he's not here?
It seems that he is unable to join, and
Okay.
so I can briefly talk about the Audit and Finance Committee, Joy, which Sherwin
Yeah, please, bye.
is chairing. And apologies, there was one question on the QA, and I will respond to it later. I clicked the wrong button, but I will respond to it. So the board in its first meeting established Audit and Finance Committee, which, as I mentioned, Sherwin will be the chair. And there's 9 board members. We're really glad that we had such strong interest of the partnership board members to join the strategic committee, to join the Audit and Finance Committee for the next 2 years. You might remember that RBM has been in a difficult situation, financial situation, a number of years ago. But the organization is really in a much better position at this moment in time. And the Audit and Finance Committee will work with Michael and the Secretary to make sure that, to have an intense resource mobilization effort to make sure that the Secretariat and the partnership is even in a better position. They will also work, they will lead an action by the board to develop RBM resource mobilization plan, and part of the plan is indeed to make sure that the partnership as a whole and the partnership committees and all the other structures can function the best in the best possible way, but also to mobilize resources for the malaria response at country level. This morning it was mentioned, I think Joy will talk to it, that there's an increasing funding gap for malaria, and the cost of doing business with increasing insecticide is going to be higher. So it's really critical that we have a resource mobilization plan. And I also understood that Michael Charles, the incoming CEO, already have some really good thoughts on how this could happen. And the Audit and Finance Committee, chaired by Sherwin, will play a critical role there. The other thing that committee will work with Michael is to recruit and make sure that to recruit new people and make sure that the Secretariat, the RBM Secretariat, is fully staffed. There have been quite a few vacancies, and it's now a top priority to make sure that we can fill those positions as fast as possible. Back to you, Joy.
Thank you so much, Marike. And we really look forward as the new board to engaging very, very actively with the CEO, with the Finance Committee, and with the Resource Mobilization Partners Working Group, as well as with all of you, in order to make sure that we have enough resources available on the ground, not just for running the partnership, but for running malaria programs in countries. So this is going to be a key focus of the partnership, and we commend the interim board and the interim CEO for having been able to mobilize the resources, like Marike was saying, for the continued operation of the Secretariat. Now, with regards to resource mobilization, we not only look at intensifying our resource mobilization efforts, but we also want to make sure that we are mobilizing resources in a way that responds to the challenges that are facing us. And that is why one of the areas that we are targeting will be on climate change, being quite clear on what our messaging is as a malaria community with regards to climate change and health and malaria. And we have established a climate change and malaria working group that will not only look at the how we communicate on climate change and malaria and what we are communicating, but we'll also develop a tool that will be used at country level to be able to interpret the impact of climate change on adaptation at country level, whether the adaptation is derived from the increase in temperature, which increases endemicity, or whether the adaptation is derived from flooding, which of course increases malaria breeding sites, or indeed desertification, which also increases breeding sites, because rivers are now being turned into pools of water, stagnant pools of water, rivers which were previously flowing, which is the ideal breeding sites for mosquitoes. And whether it is the issue of we as a malaria community and members of the global community reducing our carbon footprints. But we really want to focus on the adaptation so that we can enhance vector control, diagnostics, surveillance, particularly genomic surveillance, and also access to treatment, and of course, enhancing the research in this area. So we are intending to launch this tool just before the COP28 in December this year. We have received a kind invitation from one of our new board members, who has invited us to actually have our next board meeting in the UAE. And we have accepted this invitation. And our intention is that while we are there, during or after the last mile summit, we will be launching this tool and the advocacy messages as well that we'll be promoting on climate change and malaria. We have also been asked by the Global Fund to be very clear about how malaria is now at high risk following the inability of the replenishment to meet its target. Our CRSPC working group has working group has actually established that we have a gap of about 1 billion during the third year of, we will have a gap of 1 billion. But even now, we still have some small gaps, smaller gaps that still need to be filled during the first and second year, but the biggest gap will be during the third year. And they've estimated these gaps to be $1 billion US. So we really do need to have a very, very strong and structured message that clearly states why and how and where the risks are highest, in order for us to work together as a malaria community, including with the Global Fund, to see how we can bridge these gaps. So we are looking forward, of course, to working with all of you on these areas. We have, of course, as you know, as a partnership, partner engagement mechanisms that we traditionally rely on, that we continue to enhance and to modernize. The most important of which, of course, is the board and how it engages with you as the stakeholders in the malaria community. So the board is not some independent island, but it is a part of you, and it is an extension of you, and it needs to truly reflect your voice. And that is why we want members of the board to have a mechanism for consulting with the constituency that enables us before each board meeting and after the board meeting to be fully aligned with the members of the partnership. So that is the first most important mechanism. The second, of course, is our CEO and secretariat, extremely critical not just in delivering the current strategy, but also in the need for us to see whether the changes in the global architecture that I spoke to before necessitate any enhancing of the existing strategy as part of maybe a light touch, if necessary, could be more than a light touch, a midterm review of the strategy. So we will be looking to the partnership secretariat and the partner committees and working groups to help coordinate this process in order to ensure that we deliver a robust strategy. And then, of course, we do have the partner committees that you are all familiar with, that consolidate and amplify our priorities. And they have been proposals on how to improve effectiveness of these committees that we will be working on together with the Secretariat. And I also want to thank the working groups that some of you are members of, that are listed below. So these are the structures that we will continue to engage with, use to engage with you as a partnership, and we hope to continue to rely on you. But the effectiveness of these working mechanisms really depend on the extent to which you engage as partners and the intent to which you own them and you make them part of the way you work. So we want to hear from you whether these partnerships structures are working well for you, where they are not working well, and how you think we can actually enhance their effectiveness. I have been told that we do have other board members who have joined us. We have I'm told we have Andrew, who is from UNOPS, and we also have our partner from that is Celtic Dogomana. I hope I'm not massacring your name, from the Solomon Islands, who has also joined us. So we welcome you, and we also hope that you will be able to answer some of the questions that are in the chat group. So maybe we should move to the questions. Marika, can you start us off on the?
I'm happy to start us off. Maybe let's start with, I have answered questions in the chat, so people, I think, can look at those. They are under the tab of answered. The first one, I will read it out. Impressive representation from endemic countries. I'm wondering if the reason most of them represent regions rather than countries, apart from the gentleman from Solomon Islands, was a strategic decision or more a consequence of the challenge in mobilizing national level. I think it very much was a strategic discussion, but also something that was not decided by us in a transition working group, but really in discussing with the regions what would be the best way to be represented. We had already decided on the number of representatives from, like, 6 from Africa, 2 from Asia Pacific, and 1 from Latin America. And really in those conversations with Direct, with the African Union, with APLMA, with ALMA, it became obvious that if we would use the existing platforms where already countries were sharing information and discussing things, it would make most sense to organize constituencies around those existing platforms, as it would be easier than to have a real representative function where you can also collect input from fellow countries, but also feedback from board meetings and what are the hot topics in malaria. We thought that the best way to do that was by using the existing platforms. But if someone from the country or regional representatives would want to add to that, I think that everybody can unmute now and speak. So if someone would raise their finger, if they would like to speak to it, we can do that. I don't see any fingers yet. And Michael, as people are thinking about it, you indicated in the chat that you could respond to the question on secretariat recruitment. So I will quickly read it for people if people haven't seen it. Can you confirm if the secretariat recruitment will finally be for full-time permanent position, or will you still rely on shorter-term consultant contracts? There's really a need to stabilize the secretariat to support the partners and their initiatives. Would you like to respond to that, Michael?
Yeah, thanks very much, Marike, and very good question. I think my ambition and my focus is obviously to have a secretariat that is fit for purpose. A secretariat that is fit for purpose needs people to work there. So the priority will be seeing, how we can, get long-term staff in. However, we need to balance that with the ambition, and we need to balance that with the money that we have, with the funds that we have. So currently, I think it should be a mixture of both, but the longer-term outlook would be, yes, let's get people for much longer term, because the longer term we get people, the more committed, the more motivated, and the more we can, work with all the people and the partnerships together. At this stage, I'd really like to also thank some of the funders that have reached out to me, just to see how they can support. We will continue that discussion, but yes, very good. I think, yeah, the more longer term staff we can get, the better, and that's really a priority for me once I resume the position. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a question. I will read it. I understand that you're losing the two SCPCs, so the Strategic Communication Partnership Committee co-chairs, one joining the board, that's Yassine, and one who left Appelma. What's the plan there? I would assume we will recruit ASAP and try to find others, but maybe someone.
I could.
Joy?
I would answer to that one. That we are working on a solution together with the CEO and the immediate past what you call leadership of the committee, as well as the member of the board who had offered Dimple. Dimple is the one who is stepping down from Aproma. So we are currently working on a temporary solution. We are not going to let this fall between the cracks. Just wanted to assure you that we are currently working on a solution, and we will definitely try and resolve it quickly. The challenge, of course, that we have is that our CEO starts on the 1st of July, but at the risk of abusing him, I think we will try and solve it even before he comes in, particularly because there is a lot of eagerness from both the board members and partners to find a solution to it quickly.
I could see a big smile when you were speaking, Joyce. I think I count that as confirmation that Michael is committed to try to solve this ASAP. There's a question from Delphine TC. Welcome to the new leadership. It's a very impressive new group. Looking forward to working with all of you. Thank you, Delphine. I know that there's low representation from the Francophone world. Could you confirm that the work on the Francophonie in terms of advocacy particularly will remain a priority for the board? I think I can safely say yes. Absolutely. The representation, we really worked with the regional groups, and they selected their participants. So I don't know whether anyone would like to say anything to that. But confirming, Delphine, that it will remain a priority, and we count on you to help us. No further. Okay.
Yeah, and maybe just to expound a little bit on that, Marike, I think it is absolutely critical that representatives of different constituencies make sure that they fully consult with their constituencies And we do have at least in our group, different language groups. We have Francophony, we have got Anglophony, we have got Lusophony, we've got also Spanish speakers, particularly those from the PAVO group. And we have I don't know what the main language in the Western Pacific is, and I apologize. I hope if I say English, people won't matter me. But we really do need to make sure that we have all the stakeholder groups are fully consulted. And I did notice that particularly from the civil society groups, there is less Francophone. So I'm hoping that since the term of board members is not permanent, that there will be full consultation during this particular round, but the next round there will be a stronger emphasis on both Francophone and Lusophone countries.
Joy, maybe because I did answer a question in the QA, and which was about Global Fund and the decreased funding through strategic initiatives through RBM, and also overall decrease in strategic initiatives, which also impacts RBM. So the funding for 2023, it's still ongoing, and the work of the CRSPC is, I think, happening at full speed as countries are developing funding requests. We will continue, but at much lower level, and not for the CRSPC anymore. For people who followed the Global Fund replenishment, we had a record number of donors who provided set aside, so to have part of their contribution to the Global Funds dedicated to technical support. We are in continuous discussion with some of these donors that have significant funds for set asides to see whether some of those funds can compensate where the Global Fund could not continue funding. That is RBM, but there also were a lot of other technical partners that we can no longer fund in the next cycle. So that's ongoing business, and I think the more you can all talk about the fantastic work that the CRSPC is doing to donors, the more hopefully I am that we can find one of these donors ready to fund it. And I'm also promoting it, saying that there's one empty donor seat. So if you can take over CRSPC funding, you can also join the board. Back to you, Joy.
Very important, Marike. We will have to be really innovative in the way that we seek funding, because there is a lot of competition, which is why we really do need to walk this journey together and be as united as possible and get the messaging absolutely correct. And which is why the communications a team is absolutely necessary. The partner committee that works on communications is absolutely critical. So the intention is to get those partners who have got the expertise and who have got the resources, human resources that we're talking about at this stage, to become members of this committee and to really get the messaging absolutely right is really, really important. So I could not agree with you more. What I want to emphasize, since we don't have any questions, is that as the new board, we are absolutely determined to make this representational approach work, and not just work, but come to life in a way that responds to the concerns that were raised by the members of the RBM partnership and by stakeholders, across the globe. But this will only happen if you contribute to making this mechanism work, if you participate fully, and where you feel that some participation can be enhanced in a certain way, please speak up and approach us. We are open, we'll listen to you, we'll hold each other's hand, because this is a big jump, we have to jump together. And we really look forward to working with all of you. there's a question here about due to previous challenges and lengthy timelines as part of UNOPS and SOPs to approve some TA. Is this a change in, is this change in hosting? No, is a change in hosting still being evaluated? This is an important question. It is something that was discussed in a lighter form at the board meeting. But you know, the change in hosting is never off the table. I mean, any change that is going to enhance the way we operate is never off the table. And there were reasons why, you know, the change in hosting was not taken up previously. But I don't know if Marika, if you have got something to add to that particular question, since you are,
Yeah.
you have
No,
worked on this longer than
I
me.
have history there in, no, it's, I don't think I would fully agree with Joy. It's never fully off the table, and we keep on exploring what works and what doesn't work, and really some of these very long decision timelines that the question refers to, whether we can speed things up, and Andrew has been quite receptive to seeing what he can do from his side in UNOPS to make things easier. But it's something that we'll always have to revisit and see, is this the best option for the partnership? Are there better options out there? It's not an active discussion at the moment. We also felt that with so many decisions discussing happening at the same time, with recruitment of new CEO, with the entire board governance reform, this was not the first priority, but it's indeed never completely off the table.
Okay. So
I think
there's
Joyce,
another,
yeah, this a warm welcome from Gabrielle Carrasquilla. I think Lisa suggested we have a few minutes left, but if David Wilton is still online, because so many people have asked about malaria and climate change. And Lisa suggested that we ask David to briefly talk to the work that he's involved in, as people might find it interesting. I thought it was a good suggestion from Lisa.
absolutely. David, if you are on.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I am still on, and happy to discuss in brief with a few minutes left. And I would want to focus my comments mainly on what the partnership is asking of us and what we're aiming to do. And let me be clear, there are no easy answers when it comes to climate change. There are no easy solutions. And in fact, I would say the science is also continuing to evolve. That said, I think the question is, what are the things that are in our locus of control that we can actually do? And how do we then help, from a partnership perspective, our respective, the countries that we have relationships with and the broader community, to really think pragmatically? And that's what I think our focus is really aiming to be. I think when you look at discussions around climate change, they're often both stimulating, but lack a level of concreteness that helps us understand what actions can we take, particularly with a vector-borne disease, that can significantly make a difference, or at least begin to address these issues. And while the science is evolving, we continue to see more extreme weather events. We continue to see, for example, in Senegal, a 4-month rainy season instead of a 3-month rainy season, having deep implications on SMC and the costs therein, frankly. And so, our goal is to really respond to the needs of the community and really try to figure out what are the ways in which there are actual pragmatic, practical steps that we can do together that can really begin to address some of these issues. So that work is evolving with amongst the board and the partnership, and we're excited to as Madam Chairwoman noted, to release this, our work, at least contemporaneously with COP. And I do think it's quite symbolic that fellow board member Nasser has invited the RBM board meeting to be really right at the beginning of COP. And so I think this adds to the significance of this work, but also just highlights how important it is not only for RBM, but also for the community writ large. So we're excited to continue to work with you all on this, and the work continues with no easy solutions, but eager to move forward in a really tangible, pragmatic ways. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. We really look forward to working with you, David, and with all the members who are working in this particular space. I've just seen a comment from Gabriel that he looks forward to discussing with us the last mile for malaria elimination in the Americas. Very, very important, because we are not going to reach elimination if we don't address this last mile. And it is something that continues to confound a lot of people. A lot of countries are sort of moving in a cycle, because they cannot get rid of those last few cases. So absolutely, Michael, we look forward to addressing this together with you and the region, and also actually learning, because so many countries in the Americas are succeeding in eliminating malaria. I'm told that Gabrielle, both you, Gabrielle, and Hunter can actually support in this liaison on this particular last mile issue. So we look forward to working with you on that. So friends, we are exactly on the hour. So this is the end of our session. And I really want to thank you for joining us and for engaging, and look forward to running this last mile with you, because 2030 is just around the corner. We probably won't be able to eliminate in a lot of countries, but we can for sure eliminate in a lot. So let's go for it. Let's hold hands. Let's work together. It's exciting times. We can save a lot of lives, and I look forward to doing it with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.